The Rootbound Path. In the hush of the emerald canopy, where beams of sunlight filtered through the ancient trees like golden threads, lay the hidden village of Theralin. Few outside the forest even knew of its existence. The village was cradled in a glade beside a whispering stream, and the people who lived there had long lived in harmony with the great woodland, honoring the trees as elders, listening to the wind as a guide, and believing the forest spirits watched over them. Among these villagers was a boy named Kale, 15 winters old, with curious amber eyes and a heart that beat to the rhythm of the forest. He was raised by his grandmother Leora, the village's herb keeper and lore teller. After his parents vanished many years ago while venturing beyond the sacred tree line, Kale often asked about them, but Leora would only say, "The forest knows more than it tells." Unlike most in Theralin, who never strayed far from the boundaries, Kale was drawn to the unknown. While others feared the deep wood, he wandered its trails with quiet reverence, speaking to birds and befriending the deer who drank from the hidden pools. He often felt like the trees whispered to him, as if they knew his name. One early autumn evening, Kale returned from foraging to find the village gathered around a scorched stump. An elder tree, older than memory, had blackened and died overnight. Its bark split, its leaves ash. The villagers murmured in dread. This had never happened before. Leora was silent as she examined the roots. Her expression darkened. "The forest is warning us," she said. "Something old stirs." That night, Kale dreamt of a dark tree with silver eyes, its roots coiling like serpents, its branches weeping fire. He awoke before dawn, heart racing. He felt pulled toward the dream, as if it were not just a dream, but a message. The following days brought more signs. Rivers flowed backward, birds flew in circles, trees began shedding bark like dead skin, and from the north, from the side of the forest long forbidden, came a sound like deep breathing, a slow and steady pulse of thunder, no storm caused. Leora grew restless. One morning, she handed Kale a satchel filled with herbs, charms, and an old wooden pendant carved with a spiral of roots. "This was your mother's," she whispered. "The forest has chosen you, Kale. You must walk the root-bound path." "The what?" he asked, confused. "It's not a trail the eyes see. It's a calling, a test. Few ever hear it. Fewer return." Kale didn't fully understand, but when Leora's owl flew into the sky and didn't look back, he took it as a sign. He slipped from the village at dusk and crossed the silent stream. Behind him, the forest closed like a door. For hours he walked. The trees became older, darker. The canopy thickened. The forest seemed to lean in. When he finally rested, a silver-eyed fox sat nearby, watching him in silence before vanishing into mist. He began to notice strange patterns in the moss, like runes carved by time. The deeper Kyle traveled, the more the forest changed. Shadows moved differently. Whispers came from nowhere. He passed a grove where time had stilled, birds frozen mid-flight, leaves hanging in air. He saw a staircase carved from bone-white stone, spiraling down into roots but disappearing into nothing. He pressed on. He began to dream while awake. Visions came unbidden of his mother, running through the forest, calling his name, of a black tree cracking open to reveal light. He didn't know what was real anymore. days blurred. Then came the circle of stone. In a clearing ringed with towering monoliths, covered in vines, Kyle met a woman cloaked in green bark and glowing tattoos. Her name was Silin, one of the Watchers, ancient guardians of the forest's heart. She told Kyle the truth. Long ago, the forest was one being, a spirit called Illereth. The villages were once its breath, the trees its body, but a sickness grew, not from outside, but from fear, greed, and forgetting. A branch of the forest had been severed in a forgotten war, and in its rage it had become twisted. The waking root, Silin called it, a part of Illereth that now sought to break free and devour the rest of the world in its madness. And you, Silin said, are a child of balance. Your parents gave themselves to hold back the root spread. You must finish what they began. She gave him a seed. It looked ordinary, yet Kyle felt it thrum in his hand like a heartbeat. You must plant it in the hollow crown, she said, where the root sleeps. If you reach it, if it doesn't reach you first. Kyle continued, accompanied now by creatures of bark and spirit, will-o'-wisps, vine wolves, a raven with a voice like breaking ice. He crossed bridges of light, rivers of memory. He faced trials, an ancient mirror that showed him as a monster, a pool that drowned thoughts instead of bodies. At last he reached the hollow crown, a crater of blackened stumps and root-like towers that twisted into the sky. At its center was the waking root, an abomination of branches and eyes and teeth made of wood. It pulsed with darkness. The forest around it was dying. Kyle stepped forward, clutching the seed. The root spoke, not in words, but in fear. It flooded his mind with images of burning trees, lost friends, a world crumbling. But Kyle had learned the language of the forest. He remembered the deer, the fox, his grandmother's stories. He saw through the root's lies. He sang, not a song with words, but a song from his soul, a melody of wind and stream and childhood laughter. The forest joined him, the breeze rose, the trees echoed, and he planted the seed. The ground cracked, light exploded upward, the root screamed, and then was still. From the crater grew a tree, tall and golden, its leaves humming with peace. The forest sighed. Kyle awoke in Theralin days later. He didn't know how he returned. Leora sat beside him, tears in her eyes. You walked the Rootbound Path, she whispered. He nodded. The forest had changed. The rot was gone. Flowers bloomed where nothing had grown. Birds sang new songs. Kale became the new lawkeeper, not just of Theralin, but of all the forest. He taught the old ways and the new, and every so often he would walk the paths beyond, listening for the forest's voice. The root still slept, buried deep, but so long as stories were told and trees were loved, it would never wake again. And beneath the canopy, the forest remembered the boy who had walked its heart and healed it.